A spaceship suddenly escaped from hyperspace and appeared in space. Okay, we have entered the gravity well of planet Mijito, ready to land, Munter said. Tang Xiao looked out the window, and a beautiful planet appeared in front of him. This planet is the home of the Mon people and the third planet in the star system. Because of its extremely low temperature, the entire planet is almost frozen, which makes the planet look like a gem. And the word Mijito means gem in the ancient Mon language. The YT-1000 spacecraft flew smoothly towards Mijito. According to the identification code provided by Hego Damask 2, the spacecraft successfully crossed the defensive circle of the planet. From several huge Munificent-class communication frigates fly past. The Generosity-class communication frigate is a large warship built by the Interstellar Banking Association, and it is also a notorious existence in the galaxy. All planets that are in conflict with the Interstellar Banking Association have been threatened by this kind of warship more or less, and then have to bow their heads. It is called a frigate, but it is actually a behemoth with a length of 825 meters. Flying by this huge spaceship made Tang Xiao's heart beat faster. Their 28-meter-long YT-1000 was like an ant in front of the Generosity-class frigate. Owning such a super battleship is the greatest romance in every man's heart. What's more, in the Star Wars universe, the Generosity-class frigate is really a kind of not very good warship. In this universe, powerful warships abound. The spacecraft entered the atmosphere of Mijito, and the window was filled with white clouds and the flames generated by the friction between the hull and the atmosphere. This fatal high temperature was completely isolated by the deflector shield of the spacecraft. After a while, the surrounding flames dissipated in an instant, and a piece of ice and snow appeared in front of him. Whether it is mountains or plains, depressions or hills, they are all covered in 10,000-year-old ice, exuding colorful light in the weak sunlight. These colors do not come from sunlight, but a type of energy crystal produced in the Mijito ice layer, and it is also the foundation of the wealth of the Mon people in the Milky Way. Except for some sporadic factories and transportation pipelines, no cities can be seen on the surface of the planet. The civilization of the Mons is built underground on the planet. Munter compared the coordinates Hego handed him, then drove the spaceship to a stop next to a frozen mountain. The two mountains are connected by more than a dozen huge pipelines, and an endless stream of spaceships and trains are constantly passing through the pipelines, like ants transporting the blood that supplies the operation of the entire civilization. Tang Xiao sat on the seat absent-mindedly, looking at the iceberg in the distance. He was thinking about Hego Damask 2 again, worried about the direction of this mission. Anyway, only one thing is certain. As long as it is related to the Sith, this matter is definitely not a good thing. But from another angle, aside from the identity of the Sith, Hego can be said to be one of the most powerful figures in the Interstellar Banking Association. If you can have a good relationship with such a big guy, the Interstellar Banking Association will leak something from the gap between your fingers, which will be enough for the current fourth civilization. And Hego's final ending. Tang Xiao frowned. An extremely bold plan began to take shape in his mind. But the plan was so daring, that even just thinking about it made him feel a chill down his spine and a cold sweat. At the other end of the cab, Munter was having a very heated discussion with Quinto and Spade about who the Simid was to pick up, whether he was a ferocious wanted criminal or a murderer who committed a major crime. At this moment, a sudden explosion occurred in one of the pipes on the mountain ahead. Then a levitation car rushed out of the blasted gap, heading straight towards the spaceship. "Come on!" Munter shouted, and immediately opened the hatch of the spaceship. "There are soldiers behind him?" Quinto called. Sure enough, dozens of STAP individual aircraft were in hot pursuit behind the hovering car, and all the individual aircraft were controlled by B-1 combat robots. The droids continued to fire with the blasters on the aircraft as they pursued. Boom! Boom! The failed blast energy beam exploded around the car, setting off bursts of ice and water mist. The suspension car tried its best to keep turning to avoid it, but it was still hit by an explosive energy beam at the rear, and thick smoke suddenly appeared. A panicked Mon projection appeared on the communicator, and he shouted, "Are you here to save me? Help me! Help me! It can't go on like this, he will definitely be hit." Quinto said loudly. "I know. You go to control the turret. I'll fix it here." Munter immediately started the spaceship, and the YT-1000 disc-shaped hull immediately rose into the air. "Wait a minute. You haven't closed the hatch," Quinto exclaimed, and crawled down from the hatch, came to the turret at the bottom of the spacecraft, grabbed the double-mounted laser cannon installed on it, aim and pull the trigger. A green laser beam swept across the front, and the two individual aircraft were immediately cut by the laser beam from the middle, causing a violent explosion. At this time, other single-soldier aircraft had begun to flank the hovering car on both sides, and there was already a B-1 combat robot on the side that took out a blaster gun and fired at seemed. Munter turned his spaceship and flew close to the ground. He kept lowering his altitude, and when he passed an ice rock, a landing gear slammed into it and fell to the ground. "Are you crazy? The spaceship will crash," Quinto exclaimed loudly, who was in the turret at the bottom of the spaceship. It looked to him now as if he was rubbing on the ground himself. "Trust me," Munter gritted his teeth. Under his extremely precise operation, the spaceship flew straight past the ground, flew past the suspended car, and collided with the individual aircraft chasing him. Boom. Boom. More than a dozen individual aircraft were immediately smashed by the spaceship, and the explosions caused were all blocked by the spaceship's shield. Then Munter controlled the spacecraft to turn around again and flew past the other side of the suspended car. Those individual flying machines were smashed into pieces by the spaceships like toys. Munter drove the spacecraft directly in front of the suspended car, kept pace with the car, and then shouted at the communicator, "Come on." Seemed was not polite. He slammed the accelerator, and the hover car rushed in directly from the hatch that the spaceship opened. Just as the car was about to crash into the spaceship, a stalwart figure stood up. Boom. The T-850 faced the out-of-control car with open arms, and then collided with the car. After a tooth-crushing sound of metal friction, the car was abruptly stopped by him. "There's more," Quinto yelled. Sure enough, more individual aircraft flew out of the gap in the pipe that had just been blasted, and there were hundreds of them. Not only that, but in the sky in the distance, a fighter jet also appeared. I don't know what exactly this scene did. It was as if he had stabbed a hornet's nest, and all the surrounding defenders came over. "Hold tight." Munter grabbed the spacecraft's joystick and pushed it hard while the hatch was closed. The YT-1000 spacecraft suddenly accelerated like a wild horse and flew toward outer space. There are a lot of blasting beams on the ground, but those small-caliber blasting guns are no longer able to pose a threat to the spacecraft at this height. On several mountain peaks, hatches disguised as ice rocks opened, and large turbo-laser turrets rose from the ground and began to adjust their shooting angles. Munter's spacecraft flexibly rotated and swayed, but the fire control radar could never be locked. Several turbo lasers shot past the spaceship, causing Tangxiao to break out in a cold sweat. The spacecraft escaped from the atmosphere and entered outer space, and at this moment, the few generous-class frigates that were indifferent when they came in have already moved and are moving towards them. Dozens of Vulture robot fighters hanging outside the frigate detached from the spaceship one after another, and the mechanical claws transformed into sharp wings, flying straight as if they were really ferocious vultures. "Quinto, come back and help me," Munter shouted loudly. Quinto came out of the turret, sat down in the co-pilot and said, "But what about the turret? Spade needs to stay in the cabin to keep the equipment on the ship in good working order, and the T-850 has just cut-seamed from the crashed car to sea." Tangxiao didn't hesitate. "I'll control the turret." Saying that, he went straight into the turret. "Listen to me, the screen on your left is the fire control radar, the screen on the right is the target data, the left and right foot pedals control the rotation of the turret, and then pull the trigger to shoot." There was a prompt from Spade in the headset. "Okay, I have learned to use the turret, now take down those vultures first." "Okay, I'll try my best." Tangxiao grabbed the turret joystick and pulled the trigger at the Vulture robot fighter jet that was rushing towards him. Swish, a green laser beam was fired, but it slanted to one side and hit nothing. Those Vulture fighters rolled very flexibly, avoiding Tangxia's shooting, and then aimed at the spaceship and fired. Although Munter tried his best to avoid it, there were still a few crimson blasting energy beams that hit the spaceship and were blocked by the deflector shield. The aircraft group and the Lancer flew past, and then the Vultures turned around and chased from behind. "We must break through this line of defense to escape from the gravity well and enter hyperspace," Munter said while manipulating the spacecraft to avoid it. More than 7,000 kilometers ahead, the three Generosity-class frigates were turning, and the turbo-laser turrets on the spacecraft began to fire continuously. The turbo-laser cannon installed on this large warship is no better than the blasting machine gun on the Vulture fighter. Even if it is wiped, it will be the end of the machine crash. Fortunately, due to the design of the Gonaris-class frigate, most of the ship's firepower is directed towards the front of the ship, so before they complete the turn, Munter still has a gap to avoid. The forehead of Munter, who was controlling the spaceship, was dripping with cold sweat. He almost tried his best to roar, "I can only guarantee that I won't be hit by the battleship. But I can't take care of those fighter jets. If we don't get rid of the fighter jets, we will die. I told me to do my best." Tangxiao scolded and fired again, but still failed to hit the target. What the hell did that seem to? Now the troops of the entire planet Makayato are catching up. Quinto exclaimed loudly. Do you think it's a trivial matter that Hego can be commissioned by himself? Tang Xiao continued to fire as he spoke, but his shooting had little effect in front of the nimble vulture robot fighter. Another few bursts of explosive energy hit the shield of the spaceship. Spade's roar came from the cabin. The shield can't hold on anymore. Concentrate all the shield energy behind the spaceship. Munter exclaimed, Manager. You have awakened your power. You can do it. The lives of all of us are in your hands. Right. Calm down. Calm down. I have awakened the force. Tang Xiao forced himself to calm down. Take a deep breath, take a deep breath. He closed his eyes and tried to diffuse his feelings. This is a wonderful feeling. He seems to feel that the spaceship he is in no longer exists, and he is in that dark universe. It's just like the dream he had when he just crossed over. He seems to be a bystander, overlooking this universe, this battlefield, from a very high perspective, as if everything is under control. He suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils were extremely deep, as if a vortex was spinning in them. He stepped on the pedal lightly, the turret angle turned 7 degrees, and then the joystick fine-tuned the shooting angle, and everything was completed in less than half a second, like a cloud of water. Pull the trigger, the green laser beam instantly cuts through the darkness of the universe. A vulture fighter jet is flying in this direction at this time, as if it hit the laser itself. With a silent explosion, the vulture fighter was instantly heated by the laser beam, exploded into a fireball that spread out in space. Vulture fighters can't resist the direct fire of laser turrets at all. In this universe, bigger means stronger energy, harder structure, and greater power of artillery fire. The energy level of the 28-meter-long YT-1000 light cargo ship is much higher than that of the 3.6-meter-long ultralight fighter vulture robot fighter. Naturally, it is one shot per shot. Yahoo! Good job. Spade's cheers came from the earphones. But Tang Xiao's expression did not fluctuate in the slightest. He was neither happy nor sad, he just watched everything happen coldly. Now in his eyes, the flight trajectories of the dozens of vulture fighters are no longer chaotic, but clearly show trajectories. How these fighter planes want to fly, how they want to escape, and when they want to fire, everything is in his prediction. Although he can only predict the trajectory of action after a second or two, it is enough. A fighter plane on the left is approaching at the same time, a fighter plane below will accelerate and fire at the same time, the fourth fighter plane on the right is about to launch a missile, and Munter will drive the spacecraft to turn 17 degrees to the right and make a sudden stop to slow down. The information of countless predictions was aggregated in his mind, and then he came up with the optimal solution. Press the trigger and fire. A vulture fighter was destroyed, and then let the shield of the spaceship hold the blasting energy beam launched by the vulture fighter below, and at the same time adjust the angle of the turret to the right, intercept the missile when the missile is just launched, and the fragments of the explosion will destroy the plane. Vulture's sensors make it blind. Tang Xiao destroyed one vulture after another. His efficiency was unimaginable. He destroyed 13 vultures in less than a minute. For a time, the pressure on the Lancer dropped sharply, and Munter could also concentrate on dealing with the attack of the Gonaris-class frigate. Spade in the cabin was stunned to see all this, and even forgot to cheer. But then he still remembered his own job, and shouted into the microphone, "The shield is about to be overloaded. Enough is enough. Quinto. Start the hyperspace engine." Matsu shouted. "Hyperspace engine, start." Quinto couldn't help shouting loudly, pressing the button at the same time. The space outside the spaceship was suddenly replaced by countless rays of light and entered the hyperspace. In this high-latitude space, it is natural to see nothing. The Lancer just entered hyperspace under the noses of the 3 Generosity-class frigates and flew away. In an empty universe, a sudden white light flashed, and a YT-1000 light cargo ship emerged from hyperspace. This spaceship was naturally the Lancer where Tang Xiao and the others were. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they finally escaped from Mijito, and Tang Xiao almost collapsed. He climbed out of the turret and collapsed to the ground. Munter quickly unbuckled his seat belt and ran from the cab to help him up. "Thanks to you, we can survive." Munter looked at Tang Xiao and smiled. "We escaped. We escaped, ha 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 ha, we escaped." Dubrak Quinto and the co-pilot held his hands in disbelief. He unbuckled his seatbelt and jumped up all of a sudden. "We succeeded. We succeeded. We can actually break through the defense line of planet Mijito, haha. You must know that no one has ever committed a crime on planet Mijito. You can escape." Tang Xiao didn't even have the strength to speak. He sat on the ground and pointed feebly to the cargo hold, asking them to check on Seam's situation. Munter nodded and arranged for Spade to overhaul the spacecraft and recycle the shields because no one knew what was waiting in front of them. I think we'd better find a place to rest and replenish ammunition and fuel, Quinto suggested. My suggestion is, don't this seem as a hot potato? It's best to get rid of it as soon as possible. If we find a planet to land on, there is a high chance that there will be unforeseen problems. Mute shook his head and said. After a while, the T-850 carried the person over like a chicken. Only then did Tang Xiao and the others see that the target of their response this time was a timid Mon who also wore a pair of monocles, looking cowardly and weak, completely different from the vicious people they imagined. According to the rules, we won't ask about him at all, let's contact Hego first. Munter said, and took out the communicator that Hego gave them earlier. At first glance, this thing is temporary. As long as the transaction is completed, the communication will be completely cut off by throwing the communicator. The communication was connected, and the tall figure of Hego Damask II appeared in the projection. You have received seemed, it's good. Seeing Hego, seemed became more and more frightened. As a Mon, his height of 1.9 meters was almost shrunk into a ball. Hey. Lord Hego. I have already won. The Tony's family's transaction record is in me. Here. He pulled out a storage device. Very good, you will get rich rewards. Hego made a pun, but when he spoke, his eyes were fixed on Munter. Same said in a low voice, yes. Then according to the agreement, can I kill him? Hego looked at Munter, and the cold word came from under the metal mask. Lord Hego. Forgive me. I have completed the agreement. Simit heard the words and knelt down and begged bitterly. Munter frowned, he was a little hesitant. Killing an innocent, unarmed person is definitely not his style. We should do it right away, that's the rule, Quinto whispered. Hego Damask II didn't say a word, just looked at this side coldly. Munter raised his pistol, but he still couldn't. However, at this moment, there was a sudden sound of gunshots. Simd fell to the ground. Munter turned back suddenly, but saw that it was Tang Xiao who shot, and there was still a wisp of smoke from the muzzle of a revolver in his hand. Ha ha. That's all. Munter gave a wry smile and turned to look at Hego. It's done, I've already killed him. Hehehe. Although he couldn't see his expression wearing a metal mask, Hego still let out an unpleasant laugh. Yes, very good. Ha 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 ha. Next, go to Planet Lone as agreed and get your payment. Munter snorted coldly, pointed to the corpse of Seamed on the ground and asked back, this person should also act according to the agreement with you, right? Did he get paid? It's very simple, he knows too many things, and you? Don't know anything. Come to Planet Lone, otherwise, you will find the vast galaxy, but you won't find any place to stand. Hehehe. Hego Damask II sneered for a while and cut off the communication. Munter came to Tang Xiao's side and sighed softly, Manager, you made the right decision. I'm sorry, I should have hesitated just now, and I almost ruined the big event. He looked obviously a little disappointed. He's still alive, let's deal with it quickly. Tang Xiao said weakly, unable to open his eyes. The constant use of the force almost drained his spirits. Munter's eyes lit up, and he ran back to check and found that Seamed really still had a breath left, so he immediately brought the medicine box for emergency treatment. I used a live ammunition weapon, and I used the force to help me aim at his non-lethal position. At this distance, the bullet will directly penetrate the body, and the rescue should be fine in time. Tang Xiao added. Okay, the bleeding has stopped. Now I can save my life for the time being, but he must get treatment right away. Munter straightened up after treating the wound of the Mon. We don't have time to send him to a certain planet for treatment, you can think of a way. Tang Xiao whispered. Carbon condensation chamber. We can seal him in the carbon condensation chamber. This spacecraft happens to have carbon condensation equipment. Quinto said suddenly. As soon as he said it, T-850 picked up Simd and followed Quinto to a small warehouse. Quinto pressed the switch, and countless sprays were sprayed out, and he soon sealed Simid in a piece of half metal. Inside the gray substance of the rock. Then stuff this carbon clot into a pile of cargo to hide it, and it's foolproof. The technology of carbon condensation chamber is similar to freezing hibernation, but it is more thorough than freezing hibernation. At first, this technology was also used in ultra-long-distance voyages. Later, people invented hyperspace engines and carbon condensation capsules were gradually withdrawn from the market. Now they are often used to imprison fugitives. Note 1. I'm sorry I misunderstood you just now, Manager. I really didn't expect you to. Munter came to Tang Xiao and held his hand to apologize. If he was playing a game now, Tang Xiao should be able to see the loyalty of Munter rising. Don't think too much of me, I'm just leaving a whole card for ourselves. Well, I have to go to sleep for a while. Tang Xiao patted Munter's shoulder and came to the cot next to him, lie down, and fell asleep almost immediately. Let's set off as soon as possible, it's still a long way to go to Planet Lone. We have to go to the Hydia route first, and then transfer to the Corellia route. I have to say, after reaching the Planet Lone, we have the rest. There is not much fuel left. Hego must have calculated this point before sending us to the distant planet of Lone for delivery. Quinto said to Munter. No way, this is the end, let's go. Munter nodded, returned to the pilot seat, sat down, and fastened his seatbelt. Meanwhile, the Endor galaxy. 3 small ships emerged from hyperspace into the star system, 2 G9 light cargo ships and a GX-1 transport ship. Although it is called a cargo ship, it has actually undergone a lot of modifications. The cargo compartment has been converted into a laser turret, which has brought the armament of these cargo ships to a very strong level. Endor Galaxy, take a turn here. See if there is anything unusual. In the communication channel, a pilot said lazily. I don't know what Master Dooku asked us to find in the model sector. It's just too difficult. Another person answered. Isn't it? I've looked all over the model sector. I might as well go to the outer ring to do a bet if I have time. Don't say it, the money given by Master Dooku is enough for us to have a good time after returning to Seleno and work hard. Boss. There is a strong radar signal in the direction of planet Endor. There are actually people in the Endor galaxy, a place where birds don't shit. Huh. Maybe business is coming. Let's go and have a look. Qui-Gon Jinn picked up the teacup and took a small sip. The fragrance of black tea filled his mouth, making people feel relaxed and happy. He couldn't help but take a deep breath, reminiscing about the fragrance. Are you used to drinking this kind of black tea? Master Qui-Gon. Daphne Clement sat across from Qui-Gon and said with a smile. I've never had such a... Well, I can't say it's delicious, it should be said, a drink that makes people feel comfortable. Qui-Gon Jinn nodded and replied. How do you feel about the inspection of our 4th group's colonies these days? Clement continued to ask. There's really nothing suspicious about it, except the large mining farm you set up on the 4th satellite. Are you planning to develop industry here? Qui-Gon asked rhetorically. That's right, our group also has some shipbuilding businesses, Clement replied. Those who can build spaceships are large corporations. Qui-Gon Jinn stood up, looked at the small interstellar dock under construction through the spacious porthole of the mothership, and turned back and asked, then why did I never haven't heard of the 4th group? Our group has just been established, so many things have just started. I remember, on the planet Endor, there are native species, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had not spoken, suddenly asked, well, you have changed the name of the planet to Dawn. But this change you must report to the relevant department of the Republic. That's right, the Ewoks. We get along very well with them and have started teaching some Ewoks to help us build houses and stuff like that. After we've fully mastered their language, we'll move on gradually. For the education work of the Ewoks, try to let them enter the civilized society as soon as possible. Clement's answer was exact. In addition, there are other intelligent species such as Duroks on the planet Dawn, but they are too aggressive. Preliminary exploratory contacts are still in progress. Well, I hope so. To know that genocide caused by colonial expansion is strictly prohibited in the Galactic Republic. Obi-Wan said. It's natural. We have special staff in Coruscant to handle this. Clement replied with a smile, but his heart kept beating. Clerk, what a fart. Even the term Coruscant was only heard a few days ago from Falassi, who was held here as a hostage. Then your leader, Tang Xiao. Has he been in touch yet? Qui-Gon Jinn asked. There was a worried look on Clement's face. Not yet, he should have been in the hyperspace channel. I don't know where he went. According to the plan, he should go to the planet Tatooine to sightseeing if there are any channels for selling products. What kind of person is Tang Xiao? Clement smiled. He is farsighted, approachable, and fearless. Although he is still a little immature now, he is growing into an excellent leader. I think she's telling the truth, Master. Obi-Wan Kenobi whispered aside, the Force can feel her emotions right now. Having such a magnificent mothership at a young age and starting a planetary colonization plan, then this Tang Xiao can deserve such praise. Qui-Gon Jinn laughed. I thank our managers for your affirmation. Clement stood up very solemnly and bowed to the two of them. Notice, there is a communication cut in. The voice of the main brain came suddenly. Come here. Kijin, the chief of staff who was working in the staff department on the other side, said immediately. Then a very arrogant face appeared on the big screen of the bridge. Where did your big ship come from? You have come to the planet of Endor to mine without authorization. Do you have a license? We are the tax officers of the Galactic Republic, come to investigate your tax situation. If you are sensible, hand over the tax to us, or don't blame us for being rude. Kijin's face turned dark. Tax officer. Humph. You guys are here to grab it. I said, we are acting in accordance with the rules and regulations. The man was still very arrogant. You are such a big spaceship, you should hand in the tax of 1 million credit points, hand over it as soon as possible. On the other side, Obi-Wan Kenobi suddenly stood up and was about to rush to the screen, but was stopped by Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon turned to Clement and said, I can assure you that the tax collector of the Galactic Republic is not like that. I understand, please wait a moment. Clement also looked serious. She stood up and walked towards the combat command center. Master, it's obviously a pirate. We can't just sit back and watch like this. Obi-Wan whispered to Qui-Gon after Clement walked away. I know. But we should take this opportunity to see their realities. Qui-Gon shook his head gently. I understand this, but this is from the Republic's point of view, not the Jedi Knight's point of view. Yes, Master. At the command center, Kijin gave an order, notify the whole ship to enter a combat state. Everyone returns to work, and the fighter pilots enter the fighter plane and wait for the order. The interstellar mining field stops working. The alarm sounded immediately inside the mothership, and the staff who were on vacation came out of the dormitory one after another and ran to their respective posts. Sir. There are 3 spaceships heading for the interstellar mining station on the gaseous planet. The spaceships are 20 to 30 meters long and belong to the light frigate class. The radar soldier turned back and said loudly. Send an ultimatum to the other party and ask them to stop advancing. Otherwise, we will resort to force. Kijin said decisively. Clement was a little worried. We only have some blade fighters now, and the combat capability of this fighter. Even if there is only 1 dagger left in my hand, I will fight to the end. Kijin's eyes seemed to ignite flames. Boss, they seem to be fighting with us. On the spaceships of the 3 bounty hunters, a person looked at the huge mothership in front of him with some fear. Such a large spaceship can be crushed with the touch of a finger. To kill us. You cowardly worm, you can see clearly. Such a big spaceship has no turrets on it, understand. This is a FC-King civilian spaceship. What's the use of it? Their leader scolded a sentence. But there must be fighter jets in there. So don't run over to their ship, see the mining station on the gaseous planet of Endor. Let's go over there and try their Jinliang. If they are really good, then we will use the mining station directly. Shield up. Said the leader. Ha 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 ha. That's right. If they were just a bunch of useless security guards, then we'd make a lot of money this trip. Another man added with a wild laugh. But Master Dooku just asked us to come and investigate. Why are you so long-winded? You are as stupid as a banza. Master Dooku asked us to investigate, and we naturally have to investigate whether these people have money. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Yes. Let's go eat meat. The 3 spaceships began to accelerate, and they rushed towards the interstellar mining station like 3 hungry wolves. Ha 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 ha. In the wild laughter of the bounty hunters, 2 G9 light cargo ships and 1 GX-1 transport ship rushed straight towards the mining station built by the 4th civilization on the periphery of the gas giant planet of Endor. A returning mining ship was not in a hurry to dodge, and was immediately hit by a burst of lasers. This mining ship had almost no protection, and was blown into a ball of fire in an instant. Almost at the same time, the huge hangar platform in the center of the mothership unfolded, and 4 squadrons of blade fighters filed out. The mothership's hangars can even take off and land cruisers directly, so those fighter jets don't even have to queue for takeoff. A total of 48 fighter jets from 4 squadrons flew towards the threatened mining station. Boss. They are here. They're all light fighters. What are you afraid of? Kill a few first, and then we'll run away? The leader of the bounty hunter was so sturdy that even if he ran away, he would have to pull a few backs. In many parts of the galaxy, bounty hunters and interstellar pirates are often the same thing, it just depends on what you are doing now. Especially in the outer ring of the Milky Way, where the Republic simply cannot control, it is even more lawless. The G9 cargo ship has been modified, and 2 turrets have been added behind the cargo hold. After the 4th civilization's blade fighters approached, the turrets began to rotate and fire. One after another blasting energy beam was launched, like a red meteor. The blades immediately formed formation, and each squadron of 12 aircraft spread out again, operating in groups of 4 aircraft. From far away, these fighter jets opened fire. The two six-barrel electromagnetic machine guns spewed flames, and countless bullets were shot out, and raindrops generally fell on the target. But at such a distance, these bullets could not hit effectively at all. Even if a few bullets hit the bounty hunter spaceship, they were completely blocked by the deflector shield. The firepower of the 2G9 modified spacecraft was even more ferocious, and the blast energy beams were continuously fired, and soon hit a blade fighter. Fighters without energy shields have absolutely no chance of being spared. The blast energy beam directly blew up the fighter's fragile shell, and the fighter was blown into a ball of fire in a series of explosions. At this time, the larger GX-1 transport ship also turned around. This nearly 40-meter-long transport ship was modified to install more laser turrets, and all the approaching blade fighters were directly destroyed without any tricks. The two sides quickly closed the distance and entered into a close combat battle, but the result of the battle was still disappointing. The bounty hunter ships are bigger, faster, more powerful, and have nearly indestructible shields. Blade fighters with only rudimentary electromagnetic cannons can't even deal effective damage to them. Of the 4 squadrons, only one squadron's fighter jets were equipped with infrared laser weapons, and the attacks of these fighter jets would actually cause the bounty hunter spaceship shield to produce ripples visible to the naked eye. However, compared to the laser weapons that require continuous irradiation, the explosive weapons that explode in one hit are obviously much better, not to mention that the problem of the low power of the blade fighter has not been solved yet. Now even if it is 48-3, the blade fighters are still shot down one by one. However, the remaining fighter jets continue to attack like moths to a flame. Ha 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 ha. Boss. Their fighters are so weak. Ha 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 ha. Just now, some timid bounty hunters burst into laughter when they saw how unbearable their opponent was. Humph. It turned out to be a strong man from the outside. Come on. Show them some color. Today, they have to use money to fill our cargo hold. The leader's eyes were fierce. Found the gap between the two sides, and the 3 bounty hunter spaceships became more violent. They don't even maintain their formation, and rely on their deflector shields to rampage among the aircraft groups of the 4th civilization, the command center of the mothership. Kushan watched as the frames turned red and disappeared on the screen. Fighter icon, fists clenched and trembling all over. A huge sense of humiliation filled his heart. Every icon turned red, which represented the disappearance of a fresh life, and he was powerless. Sir. Our fighter jets are not opponents at all. They are like swatting flies. The adjutant next to him cried with tears in his eyes. Boom. Kushan slammed his fist on the table, and his force was so strong that the holographic projection trembled. Notify the engineering department to speed up the progress. One of the fighter jets that are being refitted with infrared laser weapons will be counted as one, and they will immediately enter the battle when they step off the production line. Having said that, he turned to Clement and said, also, we need to wake up more pilots. Please ask the chief executive for approval. Because there are too many people who died. Clement nodded silently. Guanyin and Feng Yangwang from the scientific research department also came to the bridge when they heard that there was a battle. They originally wanted to see the performance comparison of the two fighters and get some actual combat data, but the results were shocking. Do you understand? Feng Yangwang said lightly, go back to work. After speaking, he left the bridge. His steps were a little staggering, and he didn't know that he knocked over a potted plant next to him. When the others in the scientific research department saw this, they didn't say much. They all left the bridge and returned to their scientific research posts. They vowed to work non-stop, and be sure to complete the analysis of more technology as soon as possible. Whether it's a Wraith or a Corvette, they need more and stronger ships. Let today's humiliation not repeat itself. Let your fighters, like today, drive a fighter that is an entire era behind to fight a desperate battle. Master. Their defense forces are being slaughtered. Master. Obi-Wan Kenobi also saw the tragic battle, and he couldn't sit still. Especially when he saw that the pilots were driving the obviously backward fighter jets, but they were still fearless, and they rushed forward in batches to carry out attacks that were almost suicidal. His heart was even more touched. Sit down, Obi-Wan. Remember, don't let your emotions control your own behavior. Qui-Gon Jinn, like an old monk in meditation, sat there motionless and closed his eyes. But, Master. Sit down. At this point in the battle, we shouldn't be making this request. You should feel the emotions of the people in military uniforms to understand. Obi-Wan looked towards Kushan, and in the induction of his force, he seemed to have touched a fiery flame. He finally understood what his master meant. For those people, this was a transformation. There are some things that they need to comprehend by themselves, and some shame that they need to bear by themselves. Then, to become stronger. At this time, he saw the middle-aged female chief executive walking towards them, so he stood up and bowed slightly. His mouth moved but nothing came out. Master Qui-Gon, our administrators told me before that you are Jedi Knights, guardians of the Galactic Republic. We are just a bunch of homeless people here trying to build our new home. We don't have much here. I solemnly request you. Please. Help us. Clement took a deep breath, lowered his head and said to the two of them. Qui-Gon Jinn took a deep breath, stood up and said slowly, this is our duty. But please also understand that this galaxy is full of danger, and not every Jedi is present. I hope you understand that. This is our new home. Even if we risk all our lives, we will fight to the end. Daphne Clement still lowered her head, unable to see her expression. But Qui-Gon felt the flame in her heart through the Force. He sighed and said, rage is a double-edged sword. When it burns others, it also burns yourself. You can do it yourself. I believe we can show a better side when you visit next time. Our leader Tang Xiao is also looking forward to meeting you. Clement bowed deeply and said softly. Qui-Gon nodded, your black tea is delicious, and I look forward to tasting it next time. Well, let's go now, may the Force be with you. After speaking, he put the hood of his cloak back on. And Obi-Wan Kenobi took the elevator to the hangar. The hangar platform is empty, not many planes are here, but there is already a group of pilots on standby. Qui-Gon Jinn walked over and tried to speak to them, but found that the language was still blocked. Galactic Standard Language is currently only learned by a small number of people in the Fourth Civilization. So the two had to board the spaceship, and their pilot was already waiting on it. Qui-Gon asked the driver to leave his seat and gestured to Obi-Wan, come and drive. No problem, Master. Obi-Wan didn't refuse, but after sitting in the driver's seat, he was a little worried. Master, our spaceship is just a civilian spaceship, with only one turret for self-defense. I'm still a little unsure. Qui-Gon Jinn laughed dumbly, now I know I'm afraid. What about the energy just now? Obi-Wan said sternly, as a Jedi Knight, it is our duty to help innocent civilians. Qui-Gon smiled and shook his head, you only see their fragile surface, but you don't see through their strong heart. You feel that they are innocent now because of their weakness. But it may not be the case in the future. Remember, believe in the original Force, use the Force. Then you can see more, farther? I understand, Master. Then you mean we are now? I mean these people are in need of our help. Let's go, don't waste the time those warriors are procrastinating with their lives. Qui-Gon Jinn came to the co-pilot seat and sat down, skillfully turning on the instrument switch of the spacecraft. The Z-10 Explorer-class light craft soared into the air on a wide hangar platform and flew straight toward the warring direction of the Endor gaseous planetary mining station. On the other side of the battlefield, more than 30 blade fighters have been destroyed, and the wreckage of the fighter jets and the corpses of the pilots are quietly floating in space. However, the fierce battle did not end. In order to stop the 3 bounty hunter spaceships, the Fourth Civilization even launched an Arrow-type reconnaissance plane, and launched bold and fearless attacks again and again. The Z-10 spaceship driven by Obi-Wan Kenobi quickly cut into the battlefield. He opened the communication and said to Kijin, let your fighter jets cooperate with us as much as possible. Understood. Kijin's voice came, and then only saw that the formation of those blade fighters changed immediately, and began to operate with their Z-10 spaceship as the core. Come on. Obi-Wan pushed the joystick violently, and the spaceship suddenly accelerated and flew straight ahead. However, those 3 bounty hunter spaceships are not fuel-efficient lamps, is facing a burst of fierce artillery fire, hitting the shield of the Z-10 spacecraft for a while. No. Their firepower is too fierce. Obi-Wan's forehead began to drip with cold sweat. Remember what I said, use the Force, Qui-Gon reminded. Their weaknesses are obvious. Obi-Wan took a deep breath and calmed himself down, I understand the Master. Although they modified the spaceship and added more turrets, the electronic system and fire control system of the spaceship are still old and not fully powerful enough. Firepower. Then what? Qui-Gon guided his apprentice. Then look at me. Obi-Wan's eyes became sharp, and he controlled the spacecraft to accelerate again. This time, an arc was drawn at high speed in the air, and the wings were constantly shaking, disrupting the opponent's fire control radar. Then slam the button, and the pulse laser cannon fires a bright beam. In front of the fighter jets piloted by the Jedi Knights, even the ace pilots will not have any fighting power. Because under the perception of the Force, Jedi Knights can predict the danger in advance. A moment later, the Z-10 Explorer-class light spacecraft flew out through the flames of the explosion of the last bounty hunter spacecraft, and the cheers of the pilots of the fourth civilization came from the communicator. "Master, we did it. We shot down all those pirates." Obi-Wan said excitedly, "Are we going back to that giant spaceship?" Qui-Gon Jinn smiled but didn't speak, just turned on the hyperdrive switch on the co-pilot. Obi-Wan understood, smiled at Qui-Gon, and activated the hyperspace jump. The spaceship seemed to be stretched in an instant, disappearing into space in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the outer space of Planet Lone. The Lancer YT-1000 spaceship jumped out of hyperspace and appeared here. Inside the spaceship, Tang Xiao opened his eyes and sat up, asking, "Have we arrived yet?" "That's right, this is Planet Lone. But we didn't see who we should give this thing to." Munter weighed the storage device in his hand and said. "Wait a minute, I don't think it's that simple," Tang Xiao said. "It just so happens that I think so too." "What's wrong with your health, boss? If something happens to you later, you'll have to rely on your strength," Munter said to Tang Xiao with a smile. Tang Xiao looked at the stainless steel water cup beside him, raised his hand to concentrate, only to see the water cup shake a bit, then was carried over by an invisible force and landed at his feet with a bang. "It looks okay, I can do a lot of things." Tang Xiao clenched his fist. At this moment, the public channel of the spaceship suddenly received a communication, and what appeared on the holographic projection was the Farine woman who had been entrusted to them on the planet Tatooine before. She said with a sneer, "You guys did a good job, you got your stuff. Now, give me that storage device and take your pay, and you'll have nothing to do after that." "I think it's better to give this thing directly to Lord Hego," Munter said with a smile. Fallon's face turned cold. "Don't be ignorant of flattery. Now lean over and give me something, otherwise, I'll get it myself." "There is a radar signal over there in the asteroid belt," Quinto said suddenly. He operated on the console for a while, and the images of the two spacecraft appeared on the screen. It was a 38-meter-long tortoise-like spaceship and a larger medium-sized spaceship with a trapezoidal body and a length of 52.3. Seeing these two spaceships, Quinto's face turned pale. "It's a GH-Rock 720 class light cargo ship and a 865 Oro class cargo ship. What a waste, they can obviously handle this themselves. The mission has to let us go." "Oh, it looks like these two ships are much bigger than us, so it's probably quite difficult to deal with." Munter looked back at the screen and whistled quite easily. "I guess they just want to pick up ready-made ones, and don't want to go to Makito to go to the muddy water." Tang Xiao snorted coldly. "I think I don't just want to pick up the ready-made ones, but I also want to clean up us by the way." Munter also said, "I bet 20 uppie with Quinto's money, and the next second after we hand over the storage device chung, the blaster blasted our heads off. I also bet 100 uppie with Quinto's money, and we'll be headshot as soon as we board their spaceship." Tang Xiao laughed. "Then do we have time?" Munter asked again without thinking. "I think so." Tang Xiao's eyes fell on the T-850. "I said. How come you don't have any self-awareness at all?" Quinto felt that he was about to collapse. "Now we are out of ammunition and food, and unless we land at the port of Lone Planet to supplies, we will no longer be able to conduct hyperspace voyages. And this." He turned the screen around, and the two cargo ships that had been modified to look like hedgehogs came into view. "These two ships are much bigger than us. After modification, we can't be rivals. You know me at most, it's just running around and smuggling, and this ship has basically not been modified much. Why don't you just say that you don't have the money to modify it? Because you don't dare to take on those high-risk and high-income jobs," Munter pointed out sharply, "and your spaceship is definitely not earned by you. It was given to you by someone else, or was it inherited? It doesn't matter at all." Quinto yelled, pointing to the screen, "They're here. It looks like you guys still want to struggle." "Huh, it doesn't matter, I'll do it myself. Don't worry, I'll leave you with all the corpses, try my best." The vicious voice of the fallen woman came from the public frequency communication. Munter and Tang Xiao exchanged glances, and then said loudly, pretending to be frightened, "No. Please don't do this. We surrender. The things will be given to you right away." "Ha ha ha ha. This is a good boy. Lower the shield, turn off the weapon system, dock with my spaceship, don't play tricks. There are 20 people on my spaceship." The fallen woman snapped. Okay, I'll do it. Munter said while turning off the weapons system and lowering the shield of the spacecraft. Now the whole spacecraft is completely undefended. He steered the spacecraft toward the F-865. The Oro-class cargo ship flew over. "Very well, I'm waiting for your stuff." The fallen woman sneered and closed the communication. What should I do? Do you really want to give her something? After she gets it, she will definitely kill us. Quinto said loudly, but before he could finish his sentence, he saw Tang Xiao drop something. He caught the thing subconsciously, but found that it was heavier than he thought. Looking down, it was a black assault rifle. This is a gun. It's still a live weapon. Does anyone still use this? Quinto was stunned. A good gun can kill people, regardless of whether it's explosive or live ammunition, Tang Xiao said. Quinto fiddled with the gun before he realized it, and then a drop of cold sweat fell from his forehead. Wait a minute, do you want to fight them? Otherwise. All the way from Makito to almost traverse the galaxy. We are short of fuel and ammunition. Is it really possible to have a gun battle with these two converted cargo ships? Tang Xiao helped Quinto pull, he said while opening the safety of the gun. The YT-1000 light cargo ship slowly approached the Oro-class cargo ship and opened the docking compartment. On the cargo ship, the Farine woman commanded more than 20 heavily armed mercenaries to surround the door. Open fire as soon as the door is opened. I want that memory, not those mud guys. Vez. You drive that. I am optimistic about the 720 class ship. Once they want to do something, they will directly destroy their spaceship. No problem, boss. There was a shock from the spaceship, and it seemed that the two spaceships had begun to dock. The fallen woman took a few steps back, took out her sniper rifle and stood behind the mercenaries, staring at the door. The hatch opened slowly, but a large amount of disinfectant mist suddenly sprayed out from the passage, blocking the sight, and Munter's panicked voice came from behind. Wait a minute. Don't shoot. Otherwise, I will destroy the memory immediately. Kill him, get the memory and leave. The fallen woman whispered from behind. The hatch was fully opened, and before the disinfection mist had completely dissipated, the fingers of those mercenaries were already on the trigger. Sudden. A huge black shadow smashed its head and covered its face. This is the wreckage of a suspended car. Why is there such a thing on the spacecraft? A car. Everyone never dreamed that it was this thing that greeted them. They also wondered why someone would put a car in a spaceship. The 4-meter-long wreckage of the car was thrown out like a toy, and the mercenaries who were caught off guard fired one after another, but the blaster beam hit the car with no use. Boom. The wreckage of the car knocked over several mercenaries, sending a large spark on the ground. Some of the mercenaries who reacted immediately opened fire violently in the direction of the hatch. The sound of gunshots rang out, and several red blasting energy beams shot through the fog towards the opposite side. However, immediately afterwards, an invisible force suddenly enveloped, and the blaster pistols in the hands of several mercenaries came out without warning. Before they could pick up the gun, da-da-da-da. A crisp sound of gunfire came, and the mercenaries in front fell to the ground. All I saw was a burly big man walking out with an assault rifle in one hand. His marksmanship was very precise, and he knocked down 5 or 6 mercenaries with a burst of fire. And the blasting energy beam launched here hit him, but it only pierced the artificial skin on the body surface. It's a robot. The mercenaries exclaimed. They saw the silver white metal mechanical structure under the broken skin of the big man. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. The T-850 was not polite at all. After shooting the bullets from the assault rifle, he threw the gun away and took out the other 2 assault rifles from behind to continue firing. Tang Xiao, Munter, Quinto, and Spade followed behind, each with an assault rifle, and they were madly shooting forward without thinking. Regardless of the many benefits of blasters, those mercenaries now have single-shot blaster pistols, and they can only be shy in the face of assault rifles that can fire continuously. Da-da-da-da-da. Dense bullets shot like splashing water, and 4 or 5 mercenaries fell into the pool of blood. Tang Xiao concentrated and locked onto a Rhodian mercenary hiding behind a box, then raised his hand to grab it in the air, and the gun in the mercenary's hand flew out. He subconsciously wanted to pick it up, but as soon as he stuck his head out, his head was shot, and blue blood was sprayed on the ground. The T-850 walked bravely and fearlessly at the forefront, letting those blasting energy beams keep hitting him. The artificial skin fell off, revealing the mechanical endoskeleton in the shape of a skeleton below, and the red electronic eyes kept turning, locking on the target, and then firing. A blast of energy hit his left eye, and the electronic eye was instantly blown away, but he still aimed with the only remaining electronic eye, and sent the bullet into the brow of the bosa mercenary who shot. The bullets of the assault rifle ran out again. He threw the rifle away, took out 2 pistols from his waist, and continued to shoot. Boom. Another blast of explosive energy hit his right joint, instantly smashing his arm into 2 pieces, and the T-850 smashed the man into the bulkhead with a slamming sound. Go to hell, you metalhead. A mercenary rushed out from behind, aiming the blaster pistol at the back of the T-850's head. But before he could pull the trigger, the blaster in his hand flew out. The next second, his head exploded like a watermelon. At the beginning of the battle, the fallen woman saw that the situation was not good, and ran to the cockpit with rolling and crawling, shouting, "Close the docking cabin. Quick." As soon as she finished speaking, she heard a bang. A bullet rubbed her cheek and shot into the back of the driver's head. Brains shot to the ground. Behind her, Tang Xiao blew the still-smoking revolver muzzle, and said coldly, "If I were you, I would immediately kneel down and put my hand in my head." The fallen woman complied without hesitation. She was now terrified. "Don't kill me. That's not what I meant. Don't kill me. It's Hego." "I don't want to hear it." Tang Xiao interrupted her and was about to pull the trigger, but he flinched a little when he met the eyes of the fallen woman. Growing up, he never killed a chicken, but now. However, at this moment, a violent emotion spread in his chest, and there was a flash of ruthlessness in his eyes. Bang! A shot rang out, and the fallen woman fell in a pool of blood. Tang Xiao sighed and threw the pistol away, leaning against the bulkhead beside him, feeling a little out of strength. At the same time, the other Gothrock 720 cargo ship found that something was wrong, turned the bow and started to speed up to escape. "Cut the grass and remove the roots. Munter. Go to the cockpit and kill that ship." Tang Xiao suddenly reacted and called out quickly. "I'm already doing it." Munter had already kicked the driver's body away, but the driver's brain was full of the console, and he couldn't tell what those buttons were doing for a while. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Suddenly there was a flash of light in the cosmic space next to it, and then a huge battleship left the hyperspace and appeared in front of them instantly. This is a Generous-class frigate painted with the logo of the Interstellar Banking Association. FCK. It's Makito's pursuers. How did they get here? Seeing the 825-meter-long giant ship, Tang Xiao only felt like he was falling into an ice cave stiff all over. "Munter, can we still run?" "I don't think so." Munter gave a wry smile. Only to see the turbo laser turret on the Generous-class frigate start to adjust its angle, and then aim at the fleeing Gothrock 720-class cargo ship and fire. The ruthless artillery fire hit the cargo ship in an instant, and there was no sound in the vacuum of the universe, but the bursts of explosion showed the tragic and cruelty of this attack. With just one shot, the 38-meter-long cargo ship was destroyed. The deflector shield on the ship had no effect at all against this level of attack. Just after this shot was fired, the Generous-class frigate had no other action, just opened the door of the hangar and parked there quietly. At this time, Tang Xiao's heart suddenly jumped. He looked at the Generosity-class frigate, and his eyes became deep. He vaguely saw the deep darkness on the battleship, the boundless darkness. Shaking his head, Tang Xiao said, "Okay, I think we are safe for the time being. Quinto, you and Spade try to control this cargo ship. Munter, T-850, let's go back to drive the Lancer. Then go inside this battleship, it's time for the delivery." The Lancer and the Oro-class cargo ship flew into the somewhat cramped hangar of the Generosity-class frigate in tandem. The spacecraft stopped, and hundreds of heavily armed B-1 combat robots surrounded the spacecraft. The B-1 robot is a very simple-looking robot. Giant intergalactic enterprises such as the Interstellar Banking Association and the Trade Union all like to use this cheap, high-quality robot, whether for combat or for any other work. Munter took the memory and walked in the front, while Tang Xiao mixed in with the others, trying to make himself less conspicuous. "Stop. Hands up," said a B-1 battle droid. Then more B-1 battle droids came over, swarming their ships, with hundreds of E-5 blasters pointed at their heads. Tang Xiao and the others immediately raised their hands, with no intention of resisting. But then, some B-1 robots came over with fuel trucks and engineering vehicles, and began to refuel their two spaceships, refurbish the hulls, and even carry the bodies of those mercenaries on the Oro-class cargo ships. Go and deal with it, and even the console that was full of brains was wiped clean. Then, a Mon in a black cloak came over under the escort of two guard robots. He wears a mechanical mask on his mouth, two tubes connected to the respiratory tract are squirming rhythmically, and he has a cane in his hand. I have to say, in Tang Xiao's understanding, this person's dress is similar to that of the mages in Dungeons and Dragons. But at this moment, he didn't have the heart to complain, just lowered his head and tried not to let himself be noticed. The person who came was their employer, Hego Damask II. "Mr. Hego, this is what you want." Munter bowed his head very respectfully and handed over the memory. "Very good, your performance exceeded my expectations. I originally thought that the winner would be the fallen, Rose's Leon. Hego waved his hand gently, and a guard beside him, the robot, took a step forward, took the memory, and handed it to him. Hego didn't check the memory immediately, just put the things back in his pocket and waved his hand again. Another B1 robot came over with a money bag. "This is your reward, 100,000 Republic credit points." He lightly reported an astonishing number. You must know that in the black market, the ratio of Republic credits to UPP coins is about 1.6, and these 100,000 credits can even buy a nice spaceship directly. The price we initially negotiated was only 20,000 UPP. Munter was not at all interested in this extra income. You must know that eating people is soft and short-handed, and taking more money means more things to do. That's just the price you negotiated with Roses, not the price I gave. He said lightly, "Take it, you deserve it. You can break through the siege of Makito. And it has also proved that you are better than Roses, and this is your reward. What I want to say is that I will never begrudge those who do things for me. So, that fallen woman named Roses is just an abandoned child of yours." Munter pouted to the side. Over there, 2B1 battle robots were carrying Rose's body, ready to drop her into space. "I like to be prepared with both hands, and I prefer to deal with smart people. I hope that you are such a smart person, so you better not refuse." Hego said, there was no doubt in his tone. "Majesty." Munter had to nod and took the heavy purse. "Very good, we are friends now. Take your rewards and go find a place to enjoy yourself. I'll find you again." After Hego finished speaking, he turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, he felt something in his heart and turned around abruptly, his eyes locked on Tang Xiao, who was shrinking behind. Tang Xiao also felt this. He raised his head and inadvertently looked at Hego. At this moment, he seemed to feel that he was swallowed by an endless black hole. Nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to escape. But this feeling only lasted for a moment and then vanished, as if nothing had happened. Hage's interested eyes appeared in front of him. He looked at Tang Xiao up and down, and suddenly burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha. Interesting. Ha 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 ha. You guys, it's really interesting. Ha 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 ha." While laughing, Hego turned and left, leaving only his laughter echoing in the hangar. "You can leave now." "Oh no, you must leave immediately," a B1 battle robot said in a rigid and somewhat dull voice. Munter glanced at Tang Xiao, who was sweating coldly, and said, "Let's go." Quinto and Spad went to the F-865 Oro-class cargo ship, while Munter and Tang Xiao returned to the YT-1000 light cargo ship. He drove the spacecraft out of the hangar of the Generous-class frigate. After a while, the Generous-class frigate started the engine, and then disappeared into hyperspace in an instant. Tang Xiao, who had been nervous all the time, let out a long sigh of relief and collapsed on the seat. Undoubtedly, Hego Damask II, one of the largest and deepest darkness in the galaxy, has his eye on him. This is not good news from any point of view. Munter went to the cargo hold to take a look, and found that Jamid, who was sealed in the carbon clot, was still hidden under the cargo. The B1 combat robots did not find him when they came up to clean up the spaceship. At this time Quinto sent a message, "That boss. Where should we go now? You are free. Go back to the Endor galaxy to pick up your companions, and then you can go anywhere." Tang Xiao said suddenly. "Wait a minute, boss, you mean?" Quinto still didn't react. "Literally, you are free." Tang Xiao said, "You were originally imprisoned by us because you broke into the Dawn planet. Now I will let you go." Quinto was silent for a while, and after a long time he said, "Actually, what you said before is right. I only dare to do some simple work, deliver some goods or something. I can't make much money at all, only it's a mess. It's true that I didn't earn this ship, it was my boss. Because of a smuggling activity, he was killed by pirates, so I inherited this ship." He paused for a while and continued, "You and Mr. Munter are both capable people. I have never seen such an excellent pilot as Munter, nor have I seen a person with magical powers like you. This trip, the income of 100,000 credit points is enough for me to work hard for 3 years. So, I want to hang out with you, boss. If you continue to run those smugglers that are safer, maybe you can live to be 60 years old. But if you follow us, you may die tomorrow." Munter said beside him. "But I'll also earn money that I can't spend in my whole life. You can do it, right, boss?" Quinto said. A smile appeared on the corner of Tang Xiao's mouth. "Yes, you will earn money that you never thought possible before. That's it, tell us our next goal, boss." "Back to the Dawn planet." "Clear. The outer ring of the Milky Way, the model sector, and the Endor galaxy." Mars Veraci looked at the beautiful dawn planet outside through the spacious porthole of the mothership and didn't know what to think. Now she and the other 3 partners who went to Dawn Planet to prepare the goods in advance are arranged in the mothership dormitory. The living conditions are very good, and there is no need to worry about food and drink. Compared to the days they used to live in the slums of Corellia, it was like paradise. It's just that their freedom was restricted, especially after the 3 bounty hunters came over and caused heavy losses. Kushan strengthened their supervision. Now at the door of their dormitory, there are always 2 cold-faced Marines on duty. Comparing the physiques of the 2 sides, Veraci believes that even if there are 4 people on his side, it is absolutely impossible for them to be their opponents. At this time, one of the companions named Kenneth came over and whispered in Felicia's ear, "Miss, do you know about the attack by the bounty hunters before?" "I know. What's the matter?" Felicity asked back with a frown. "At that time, you were all in the dormitory here, and you couldn't see the battlefield. At that time, I happened to be teaching Galactic Standard to a few people on the other side of the spaceship, and I saw the battle process," Kenneth said. 3 bounty hunters came to rob them and caused heavy losses, but they were killed later. "I know that. There are still some engineering spaceships recovering the wreckage of those bounty hunter spaceships," Fira West answered. "No, that's not the point. Do you know why 3 bounty hunters can cause such heavy losses?" Kenneth said in a low voice, "I saw it." "What?" "The size of the mothership is so huge that we all thought the defenses here were astonishingly strong, but it wasn't. Their fighter jets were completely the product of the original planet. The 3 bounty hunters were flying 2 GA-9 and a GX-1, both old-fashioned retrofit ships, slapped their fighters like flies." "Is there such a thing?" This time, it was Felicity's turn to be surprised. She was so frightened when she saw the mothership for the first time that she didn't think about resisting at all. She didn't expect this to happen at all. "Isn't it? Those 3 old spaceships actually shot down more than 30 fighter jets. The people of the 4th group have no choice but to build fighter jets to fill it up. In the end, the visiting Jedi Knights shot them. They just killed them." Kenneth's eyes lit up as if he had discovered a gold mine. Veraci's expression became serious. "What are your plans?" "Their defenses are nothing, and this mothership and the colonies below are inexhaustible pockets of money. Listen to me, I know a few friends from the Tau who are associated with the Black Sun. I have an old-fashioned Hammerhead-class cruiser in my hand. Although it is a little worn out, it is absolutely no problem to crush the defense force of the 4th group," Kenneth said. "A cruiser? I remember that the Hammerhead is a corvette?" Veraci asked. "No, this is the model left over from the Sith War 2,000 years ago, the 315-meter-long one. Not the 116-meter frigate model developed by Lundilly Star Engineering later. This ship they are on the black market. Half scrapped for a low price, then refitted and refurbished several times, and now it's awesome. Tatooine has the largest ship around." Veraci frowned and said, "But now we don't have the ability to send the news out at all. So this is your business. Look, we are hostages now, but isn't Quinto Boss running with them? Tell him when he comes back, and we will send the news. Wait until that friend come over and take this mothership, and think what a good life will we have. Occupying this mothership is also your friend's business. What's our business? This is not the same. As long as you agree with him, we will divide it into 2 and 8. We are 2, they are 8, and they will definitely do it. Besides, do you not need people to manage and operate such a large mothership? We are the first to batch. At that time, let alone 120,000 credit points, I'm afraid we can go to the casino in Canto Bay to throw hundreds of thousands of credit points, ha 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 ha." Kenneth couldn't stop. He laughed, but then stopped his laughter alertly, and looked around carefully. "How about it, eldest sister, can we do this vote?" he asked again. Felicity didn't speak, but her eyes gradually became cold. "Eh? Tang Xiao, Munter and the others returned to the mothership. Although their lives were almost on the line, the trip was generally a near miss. The most important thing is that they really returned with a full reward. Not only did they earn 100,000 Republic credits, but most importantly, they also returned a FX 865 Oro-class cargo ship. This cargo ship is 52.3 meters long and 16.44 meters high. It adopts a trapezoidal hull, a pair of solid wings are located at the bottom of the spacecraft, the engine is installed at the tip of the wing, and the wingspan is 42.33 meters. Although it is an outdated spaceship, the Oro-class cargo ship is still used in many places because of its large enough load capacity and reliable performance. You must know that the market price of a brand new Oro-class cargo ship is 240,000 Republic credits. And now in addition to the YT-1000 light cargo ship of Munter, the fourth civilization has a second spaceship that can travel in hyperspace, which makes their activities much more convenient. However, the joy of returning home was soon washed away. What did you say? We were attacked by bounty hunters. Hearing the news, Tang Xiao, who had just sat down to take a rest, jumped up. Kijin and Clement stood side by side in front of Tang Xiao, keeping their heads bowed, and said extremely heavily, yes. 3 bounty hunter spaceships suddenly came to the Endor galaxy and suddenly launched an attack on us. Attacked. What about the loss? Tang Xiao's face was as deep as water and his voice became low. Kijin took a deep breath. We first dispatched 4 squadrons, 48 fighter jets to attack, and then took off 20 fighter jets and reconnaissance planes one after another. Among them, 31 blade fighters, 3 aero reconnaissance planes were destroyed, and 34 pilots dead. In addition, 4 small transport ships were destroyed at the collection station, and 8 pilots died. Tang Xiao's lips moved, but he was unable to speak. Manager, our fighter jet is really not the opponent of the other spaceship. The gap is too big. Kijin clenched his fists tightly, his body trembled a little. Now I know your visionary manager. Indeed, even if we have equipped Blade 2 fighters, the results are not far behind. Only by getting the ghosts into service as soon as possible will we be able to fight. Mainbrain, show me the battle video. Tang Xiao said. All right, manager. A.